All right, welcome in. Welcome, Delano. Delano, I have a great topic for you and I to discuss. And happy 4th of July weekend to you and your family, Delano. But woke preacher clips came up with a doozy of a clip that as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, I gotta get Delano on to talk about this. But I don't even, can I do it justice? The preacher has this fantasy of Joe Biden getting reelected and not being able to finish his term. And then the next, Kamala Harris steps in as president, and we got a black woman president, and she went to Howard, and she's an AKA. It was a lot. Let's play the clip, and then I want your reaction.
Now you understand that it ain't about Joe Biden. It's about the fact that they also know that if Joe Biden gets reelected in November, at his age and stage, he probably won't stay in the presidency for another 4 years. And if he doesn't, guess who emerges back to the seat of the presidency? Another African American, and this time it's a sister who went to Howard University, who's an AKA. Y'all may as well shout back at me here. I need about 50 people to stand on your feet to say, that's intelligence. You gotta read between the lines. That's the greatest fear right here. Because if this happens, we can reclaim DEI. We can reclaim critical race theory and put our content back in textbooks to teach the truth about a racist history in America. If this happens, we can reclaim the Supreme Court, because right now they control the Supreme Court, and they will put 2 more judges on it to make sure we go back to the plantation. I want to ask, who here wants to go back to the plantation? Tell somebody it's not time to go back.
Now, Delano, from my understanding, that's your home church and minister, and you were in that crowd.
Not even close.
Your thoughts? Your thoughts on that?
I mean, everything about it was bad. The preoccupation with the politics of the day is bad. No mention of Jesus Christ, no mentions of sin or the cross or redemption or grace or forgiveness. The sort of 4-dimensional chess that he thinks he's playing. Oh, well, vote for Biden, even though he may, have some highest cognitive decline, because eventually we'll get a sister from Howard University who's an AKA is bad. But I think that the thing for me that sort of, and it's appropriate, it came at the end, sort of this entire thing culminated with, is his claim that if they get the Supreme Court, if conservatives get the Supreme Court, they're going to put you back on the plantation. Because ultimately, this is where it always comes down to, Jason. We're to the point where a significant portion of the black community can only think of the world, 1, in terms of race, 2, in terms of slavery, Jim Crow, oppression, and marginalization. And you see that in this church here. And the fact that this is so commonplace that, there's a whole series of these videos that you could show on any given Sunday, is deeply, deeply disturbing to me. Because if this is what black folk get when you go to church, I'm not surprised that so many of us are functionally atheists.
So, and it's built on fabrications. It is this whole, and I know she went to Howard, and I know she's an AKA, but like acting like Kamala Harris is Harriet Tubman, or hell, even Oprah Winfrey. This is she's Indian and something else, and she's married to
Jamaican.
a white man, and she's Jamaican, and it's just like I just don't get it. Like, she's homegirl from around the way, soul sister number 1. I don't get it. Who can make that sell? She's not even trying. Well, I guess she occasionally does try to play that role, but it's just not true.
Well, I guess I think this goes into a deeper conversation on racial identity. Who is black? Who holds claim to blackness, right? Who's the arbiter of blackness? I see this a lot online. It tends to cut, on black means black American, ADOS, FBA, everybody else, and the immigrants, the tethers, right, are not really black. They are whatever their national identity is. And part of it is that, and then part of it is, goes back to the one drop rule, right? So it's like, okay, well, if you're black and something else, are you really black? And I mean, I think those are interesting conversations to have. I don't subscribe to plantation logic per se, but I mean, if she claims it, right, and she says, hey, I'm black, I'm a black VP, I'm not necessarily gonna fight with it, but I will say this, Jason, when the Associated Press covered her swearing in years ago when she was a senator, it was Kamala Harris with a bunch of other Indian Americans who have been elected to Congress. She was on the Indian American video, not the African American video. So, for whatever that's worth. But I think the perception that she is black, same way with Obama, is one that's there, that resonates. And I think a big part of it is that there's such a deep, deep desire within our community to have, one, representation in every area of society, and two, there's this notion that if we get the right people in, then they're going to fix all of our problems. And I think the uplift through politics strategy that the black community has hitched its wagon to for the better part of 60 years has been a complete and utter failure at this point. And I think at a certain point, we got to be honest with ourselves and say, we need to do something a little bit different.
Well, at some point, we have to be mature enough to say, hey, someone's skin color it's not an indication of whether the things they're going to promote are actually going to benefit the people who share that person's skin color. And so to me, that's where I want to know what your mentality is, what your worldview is, what your life philosophy is, what your values are. And so if I had a choice between choosing a black woman or someone whose lead identity was, I'm a Christian and I'm going to interpret the world through this Christian lens, I'm going to choose that person. The one with the Christian lens, that's going to benefit me. Someone who wakes up every day and says, I'm black and let me prove to you how black I am. There's no proof that works for me or works for us. There's a worldview and a set of values that universally, I think, works for humanity. And somehow we can't get there mentally because, as you said off the top, it's like all they have to say, they're going to take you back to a plantation. And even if the plantation existed 160 years ago, somehow they believe like, oh, they know the way back. They know the way back to that plantation. None of them have ever been to that plantation. They're all dead, but they know the way back. And we keep falling for that, like, yeah, they're going to take us back to slavery. And maybe there's proof of it, but I just haven't seen it here in America.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? Melanin is not a virtue. And I don't care how much people try to act like it is. It tells you nothing about what a person believes. But I think we're at a point where, to paraphrase Nicole Hannah-Jones a couple years ago, within the sort of black consciousness, political consciousness, there is a perception that there's a difference between being racially black and quote unquote politically black. And politically black is just a synonym for embracing leftist politics. But that is a critical mistake, obviously, particularly for people who share our worldview. But I do think the fact that everybody knows this, Jason, that if you want to make something resonate with black folks, all you got to do is tie it to slavery. And this is the easiest play. And what it tells me is that people perceive us as being not just marginalized and oppressed. Those are the surface words that they use, but deeply, deeply psychologically damaged. It's like a guy who meets a woman And he just offers her the slightest comment. Oh, that's a nice, nice pocketbook you have, nice hairstyle. And she says, oh my gosh, nobody's ever said something so nice to me. He knows this woman is deeply, deeply hurt. And he understands, now if I want to have my way with her, I'll just say a few things here, a few things there, a compliment here, a threat of abandonment here, and I can get her to do exactly what it is that I want her to do. And one of the reasons that I think is so critical that people never embrace a victimhood mentality. And this goes for black folk, women, gays, so-called trans, and I will say this, and I think it's increasingly relevant today, and straight Christian white men, the types that I follow online who feel, well, I'm being attacked, and now I'm the new victim, right? They want to do to me what they're doing to Caitlin Clark in the NBA, like that type of mentality. The reason you don't embrace victimhood is because once you do, it is a pit that is incredibly difficult to get out of. Because once you get there, everything that you see in the world is interpreted through that lens. So somebody cuts you off while you're driving. Oh, they only did that because I'm a black man. Now you got tents that's so dark that you can't even see the sun, but they only did that to me because I'm a black man. And it's one of those things that is incredibly difficult to extricate yourself from. And I see this every time we get somewhere in the public square. The moment somebody mentions slavery or Jim Crow or segregation, people, they start to lose their mind. And at a certain point, it's just like, we can't live like this anymore, right? If we want to pass on prosperity to our posterity, we have to keep our eyes downrange and ask ourselves, what world are we building for our descendants, not which world our ancestors had to endure.
So, and I'm asking authentically because I don't know, is there any chance that there are white churches that are preaching a similar style of racial idolatry? Or is this unique to the black church? Are there maybe Asian churches or Latino churches that are preaching this type of idolatry that we're just not being exposed to? And like in a Latino church, maybe they're preaching in Spanish, and so I wouldn't even understand it if they were doing it. But this, to me, from the outside, or maybe I wouldn't even say the outside, from the inside, it looks like this particular style of idolatry is unique to the black church, that other churches, they may believe all the same things, but it seems maybe they're having private meetings on Wednesday where they preach this kind of racial idolatry, but we seem to be doing it on Sundays loudly and proudly and on tape. Am I right? Is it unique just to the black church?
I don't know if I would say this is unique. It certainly may be more prevalent. And I think part of it is an issue of sort of terminology, right? So when people say black church, it's not just if you have a church that's majority black, and I went to a church like this that sings contemporary Christian music, right? Like Hillsong and some of these other things, and they wear casual clothes. And the preacher talks like he's doing a TED Talk. Yes, it's a black church in that the people there are black, but it's not a black church in terms of the preaching style, the cadence, the call and response, right? The emphasis on liberation and sometimes on politics. So I think when we talk about the black church, we talk about that subset of churches who have, again, a particular style of preaching, a particular sort of set of cultural norms around the church and the pastor's role and what the Bible is for and what the gospel really is for, right? Freedom, not from sin, but from racial oppression and so on and so on and so forth. I do think that some of this preaching, particularly the emphasis on race, is more prevalent today. Now, if we rewound the clock 50, 60, 70 years, and we were somewhere in the Deep South, could we be hearing sermons from a majority white church that were as racialized and politicized? Absolutely. Now, I think what you see in the equivalent, now there is a subset of sort of some MAGA churches, and I've seen one guy named Robert Jeffers, who's a very prominent preacher. He had a MAGA hymn that he wanted to sing, that the church choir sang before President Trump, I think, appeared at the church. So there's a subset of that. But I think what you see on the left, and these are oftentimes majority white churches, is the idolatry of sexual identity and sort of pride, right? So a lot of the white sort of mainline Methodist, Episcopalian, those types of churches are as idolatrous, but on the issue of pride. That's where you see the drag queen story hours. That's where you see the female pastrixes and pastors and so on and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on in the church across the board. If the Apostle Paul was still alive, a lot of churches would be getting strongly worded letters. But in terms of this combination of race and politics, it does seem to be more prevalent in the black community. And it's certainly what I'm familiar with. Because Jason, when I see these videos, nothing about me is even stirred anymore, because I'm like, well, okay, this is what a lot of these churches do. I don't go to them. I would run out of there like my pants were on fire. But I know this is what goes on in a lot of pulpits come Sunday morning. And it's one of the reasons that, in terms of the issues we talk about the family and restoring the black family. I understand that one of the groups that would be most resistant to the types of things that we talk about will be some black preachers and many self-identified black Christians who I would characterize as functionally atheist on issues of marriage, sex, and sexuality, because their entire worldview revolves around sort of systemic racism and economic inequality as being the main problems we face. And that's why all they have to offer is a message of bigger government and better white people.
On that note, Delano, we will end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
4th of July.
Same to you.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment of Fearless.